Welcome to Masterminds with James Allen. He is I and I am him. Today, oh man, we have a special guest. Let me go ahead and introduce her right before we hop into it. We have engineer and consultant turned entrepreneur, business owner, doing big shit, owner and creator of Kaleidodope, published author, awesome, painter, but most importantly, daughter, sister, friend, the one, the only, Krystal Banner.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for having me. I like that intro. That was nice.
Yes, absolutely. So, what are we doing today? Are we being serious? Are we being silly?
I think we can start serious, and then I know you, so we don't take ourselves too seriously. So I think that's important to show, especially when talking about being a business owner. I think coming from the corporate world is so stiff. And what I've learned is that being me has been the best course of action in terms of doing business. And that's not necessarily what we're taught. We're taught to like, look professional and do this and dress this and wear this. And that's not really seen as authentic in my world. So I've seen, that's been probably the biggest gift about working for myself is I'm just me, like take it or leave it. Like, it's cool. Like,
whatever, know? But before we get into it, I just had to put this out there and clear the air. Yo, you could never and will never beat me in a freestyle. So I just had to randomly put that out there and establish that before we go into it,
Okay, so we might have to do a part where we test this theory. And that's perfectly fine with me. We could do that.
Turn the music up.
So that people can let you know, hey, we're curious about whether the claim you're making is true. And then, you gotta prove yourself.
Right. No, hey, I'm always, battle ready. You know what I'm saying? I'm down to get it. No, Krystal, I'm really excited to talk to you today because like your background is awesome. You are engineer, trade skill, and then you've done consultant work, and then you did a complete 180 and go to owning your own company and with Kaleidodope. And let's back up so everyone knows, because there's so many different facets to Kaleidodope. So can you go ahead and just kind of explain to us what that is and in your own words?
It's a very unique hub. I call it a creative hub because I don't want to put myself in a box, and I have so many different sides. I feel like I'm multifaceted. I'm in the spiritual world. I'm secular. I make these cards that play off of pop culture, rap music, all of these different things. I create things like incense. I create like all of these different things are parts of me. And then, on the other side, I paint, and I'm passionate about art and just making things beautiful, but also making sure they have depth. So everything in the Kaleidodope world really falls into that category of color, culture, sense of humor, Black culture, representation, healing, like all of these different aspects that I feel I have experienced. And it's funny because it is a 180, but at the same time, I've taken a lot of what I've learned in that corporate world. And people don't understand, like when I say I was an engineer, like I was in a manufacturing facility with like hard hat on, flame retardant jacket, and on the floor talking to people. So it's very industrial. And what's crazy is before I got signed to Hay House, I was publishing my own decks. So when I went to China and I'm in a manufacturing facility on the floor, talking to people, looking at machines, this is not brand new to me. And if I was just an artist, that would be completely overwhelming because where do you have a frame of reference to talk about production and lead times and the quality and all of that? And that was my world for years. So we talk about things that are full circle and, taking bits and pieces on the way. Cause sometimes people think like, oh, I want to do my own thing, but I'm like killing time here, wasting time. You might be getting valuable skills. You never know. That'll take you to that next step. So Kaleidodope is really just a place where I can be creative and try out things and create things, and some things work, some things don't, but it's all something that I want to do. And I can decide at that time, this really isn't working, this isn't catching on, or I'm not feeling how this is going. Boom, move to the next thing. Oh, this really caught on, I wasn't expecting it to, got to ramp up production, or I want to change it. So that is actually the coolest thing to me, is being able to explore my creativity and also see how people are interacting with it, and having the freedom to do that and not have somebody say, oh, we're not doing that because
Right.
I trust my intuition a lot. And in the world of numbers and making money, it's like, show me the proof, like prove to me that this is going to make money. And in my business, I don't operate that way all the time. I have to trust my gut sometimes. And when you're working in a corporate environment, the gut don't pay the bills. So now I have a little more freedom to allow myself to trust my intuition and do things where I'm guided, and I can't really explain why I feel guided to do this, but I'm going to do it, and it works out. So that's really cool.
Dope, man. I appreciate you sharing that. So many questions from what you just said. So many. So I guess question number one is, artistically, what are your biggest inspirations? Where are you getting that motivation, that inspiration from artistically?
So growing up, I was always into art, in art classes, that kind of thing. And Jonathan Green is actually a painter, and he's known for painting like Gullah Geechee scenery. It's very colorful art, of like the church, or being, or going crabbing, or going shrimping, and very, very Southern imagery. And that's what I remember being drawn to as a younger child. But just colorful art always attracted me. And as I got older, I got into, looking at the art explosion in the 80s, which in New York, which was like Basquiat and Keith Haring and, Warhol and all of those people, and seeing what they did. So that always, I thought, was like really eye-catching. And what I feel like I take from all of that is using color to like attract people, but there's a deeper message as well. Yep. So with art, that's kind of where I'm comfortable. Also, like, I had a dope childhood, so I was influenced by cartoons, and just the kind of now as an adult looking at cartoons and how a lot of those things like mimic life. So I made a tarot deck called Life is Like a Board Game Tarot, inspired by Monopoly, because I'm like, wow, life is really like a board game, and all like the taxes and buying property and making the right decisions and this neighborhood and that. I'm like, there's a lot of parallels to a lot of the things that we were doing when we were children. So I try to pull that into, and it touches on nostalgia for a lot of people, but also it has them thinking about these things in different ways that, as an adult, of course, with your life experiences, you're going to see it a little different.
Okay. No, I mean, dope. So you're very unique in the way that, they usually talk about people left brain, right brain. I mean, and you go from being an engineer to, this artist. But I mean, you've always been an artist, I guess, so to speak, and you learn how to be an engineer. But I'm really interested to hear about in your business today. Like, there is a certain aspect, you already talked about it, going into warehouses and finding out production lead time and all these different things, back office work, the your marketing, your accounting, all that kind of stuff. And then you got to turn around and flip on that artistic switch.
Yeah.
So how are you doing that? Because I know for me personally, like, with me having a finance background, I felt comfortable in that space. So me transitioning, that was all great. Like, I was knocking out spreadsheets and I had everything packed, but sales drives my business. I got to get out from behind a computer and go sell this shit. And so how are you balancing all of that? And I mean, Kaleidoscope started in 2017. You've clearly been successful in your business. So how have you managed to do that?
It's been difficult because that non-sexy, non-creative stuff is not fun to me. It's not fun, but it has to get done. And that's how I distinguish myself as an artist, in my opinion. So as an engineer, what distinguished me was my artistic side. So I wasn't looking at things so logical, and that made me unique, and it made me like approach things different ways and had people a little uncomfortable because I didn't think in this very, very square box. And it's the same thing as I'm an artist and I have this logical brain. So it comes in handy because I meet a lot of people that are like, we're not used to artists, having all this ability and information regarding design, technicality, quality, like all the technical stuff, and business stuff that's not necessarily fun, but it has to get done if you want to be successful as an artist. And I'm a big fan of documentaries. And I feel like you learn a lot by learning about other people. And one of the saddest things that I've seen from, and I want to say like visual artists, like singers, all these people, they get taken advantage of because they're not up on the business, or that's not fun to them. I get it. That's not their wheelhouse, but there's a side of you that just has to push through that side that doesn't come as natural, because it doesn't come natural to me. I just want to be up in the clouds creating stuff. But I can't do that. You know what I mean? If I want to make money, if I want to be taken seriously as a company and as an artist, my business can't be shiesty. It can't be all over the place, because who's going to want to work with me? Because now I work with a lot of big brands. If I'm like, they say that it has to be the warehouse by this date. And I'm like, oh, but I gotta buy. Like, they're gonna be like, yeah, bye. So it's like, there's certain things that you have to be up on. And I push through, I get support where I can. I outsource things. If I don't know it, and people don't realize, like, you don't have to know everything. If I don't know it and it's not value added for me to learn it, I don't do it. Because why spend my time that way? So that's how I've fought that, because it's hard, because that is not, and I tell people, if it wasn't for my passion for art, I would not have a business. If you're not passionate about some aspect, if it doesn't do what you want it to do, you're going to keep jumping from thing to thing, because there has to be that passion to get you through those times where it just ain't it. Like the business side is not exciting all the time. And so that's what really has me as an entrepreneur, is my love for art and what I do and how I'm able to connect with people through art. So I think that's how I know my weaknesses. I outsource the stuff that I don't know, or is just not my strong point. And I make sure to push through those things that, I think it makes sense for me to do right now, but might not be the most fun thing or the thing that I enjoy the most.
Right. But let's look at that on the flip side. So when you've struck a deal with a major business corporation, but on the flip side of that, have you ever hit some artistic block and you're like, I just don't know what to do, and you've kind of been on the hook for producing something, but there may have been a period where I just don't feel like doing this shit today. You know what I mean? Like, so how do you balance that?
I give myself grace. Like that's I think the most difficult thing about being an artist and being in business as an artist, because if you don't have the inspiration, you just don't have the inspiration. But I realized sometimes that could come from different factors. And one of those factors could be the directives aren't clear, or one of the things that I've experienced is somebody wants something, but they don't necessarily know what they want. And I can create something, but if you don't know what that is, it's going to be hard to come to a conclusion. Or like for me now, I'm at a point where I have so much on my plate, I can't figure something out for somebody else. If they don't have a clear idea of what they want, that's the time to go back and forth is going to take me from the time I could do something else that will be productive, or that will make money, or, something that is I'm going to enjoy doing. So I think how I deal with that is trying to get to the root of why, and leaving enough space for that, I don't know, that inspiration to occur. Like when I was signed to Hay House, I just finished working on my second project, and I get a long time to draw, because I'm not only the author, I'm the illustrator. So I'm drawing too. And how it's different is when I self-publish, I draw everything, I do everything. I get, friends and family to look it over, and it can go to production. When you're working with larger companies, it's got a lot of people to go through. Somebody got to look at it. Somebody might say, we don't know about this. We don't know about that. And that can be a bit of a buzzkill because you're on a roll and it's like, wait, but, and it's art. So it's subjective. It's right. So that really had me at a point where I'm like, okay, well, I don't really know what to create because I'm trying to create to make sure there's not too much like criticism or question, but that I felt like, okay, I'm just thinking about this a little too much. Let me just let it ride for a bit and get natural inspiration. But I had time to do that. If the time frame was a lot shorter, I would have had to negotiate that because I know when I'm working with other companies or other brands that time needs to be there for that back and forth and for that discussion. And maybe for the time where I'm really at a loss and I need to like take some time to recalibrate and figure out what it's going to look like. But it's also why I focus a lot on Kaleidodope because I know what's in my head. Yeah. I know how I can move forward. And a lot of the companies that I work with, they have my product. So it's like they see what I've created. They're like, oh yeah, we want to sell that or something like that. So.
All right. So taking a step back, I mean, I'm really interested to hear about this because everyone's story is always different. Going back to, I guess 2016, 2017, when you made that transition, what did that look like? And what was the catalyst, to really get you to make that definitive decision to say, hey, I'm all chips in, I'm betting on myself. What did that look like? Kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, this is a good story because it's like the duality of like spiritual and kind of secular and does this make sense and all of these things. But I had started creating cards for friends in 2017, just as, me being creative, because in my engineering world, I didn't really have a lot of flexibility to use my creativity. Yeah. So I had friends that would be like, you need to sell these. And I was like, yeah, whatever. So I set up an Etsy store. I didn't even have like a website at the time. I set up an Etsy store and literally like 2 days after I posted something, I made a sale. And I was like, and so I Googled it and it was like a message board where people were like, oh, I've been on Etsy for 3 months and I haven't made a sale. And I was like, oh, this is like, sounds like it might be abnormal here, like 2 days.
Right.
And so the sales started coming in. I was like, oh, I might be onto something here. And the whole time I'm still working full time. And I had been painting, I had been creating, doing all these things. And I think that was just my outlet. And I started to think like, what could this look like if I like did this? And I'm like, I don't know how it would look like because even though I'm making side money, I'm not making pay my mortgage money. So it's like, logically and realistically, I was like, I don't see it. And so, I was making steady income, side income. And then I remember at the beginning of 2018, I was in a meeting and I literally said to myself, I don't care about any of this. I don't care about any of this. And so I started thinking like, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're passionate about it. It doesn't mean you should be doing it. So I was like, I don't know how it would work out, but I would love to do Kaleidodope full time. And it's one of those stories like, watch what you ask for because you might get it.
Right.
So a couple months later, my boss came and he told me that they were doing a reduction in force. He said that I wasn't like on the list, but if I wanted to go, I would get a severance because they were, letting go of a certain number of people.
Right.
And my first response was, oh, absolutely not. Like stability is important to me, and I have been working here for years. And my mentor at the time came to me and he had known what I was doing. And he was like, nah, you need to go. He was like, I believe in what you're doing. You need to go. And I had a couple dreams where it was like messages of like moving forward and I'm like, okay, this is no coincidence. Like I'm not a skeptical person, but at the same time, I'm like, I can't ignore what these, like all these signs that are coming in. And I just started to really think what that would look like. And I was like, well, a severance would kind of give me some time to figure out. And, I'm like going through it in my head, but in my heart, I knew this is exactly what I asked for. I'm like, you asked for this. Like you did, it didn't say how, you asked for this. And so I'm like, this is what I asked for. So I needed to at least give it a try, or I'll regret not at least trying. Because my mentor was like, you have an education, you can always go back to work. Like work's going to be there.
Right.
And so I left with my severance, and it was like whatever cap was on my creativity to allow me to exist in this very logical engineering world came off. And I just started, I had all these ideas. I started creating. So at the time I felt like I was going through like a lot of spiritual growth, because it felt like things were falling apart. Like, what is going on? Like, I thought I did everything right. Like I went to school, I got a good job, I make good money, I'm traveling all over the world. Like I'm doing everything right.
Right.
And here I am, no job, trying to do my own thing. And I never had the desire to be an entrepreneur. What am I doing? But in that place of like unknown, I feel like I found myself. Without sounding too cliche, in terms of like, what have you always enjoyed doing? What has always been your talent or your gift in art? Creativity, that has always been my thing. And I just went crazy with designing stuff. So I had all these ideas, and I was overseas for a while, going in museums, because I'm an artist and I like art. And I was like, there's no Black people. There's no Black people. And not just Black people, because people think like Black art or Black culture means Black people. It could be symbolisms, what you resonate with, a cultural symbol, something that is just very familiar with you. And I'm like, I don't see any of this. And we talk about the art world, and it's so bougie sometimes, and like, condescending, like, oh, you don't understand that. But if it doesn't resonate with that person, how can they?
Right.
It's one of the things I really wanted to do with my business and with my art is to represent Black culture and the things that would resonate with me and the people like me. And so I incorporate my sense of humor and that sense of culture in my greeting cards and in a lot of my work, because that's who I am. And
what sense of humor?
Don't do that.
My bad. Oh, yeah, keep going. All right.
So, and that's just a nod to also like, I take stuff seriously, but I do not take myself too seriously. Like you have to laugh to get through this life with all the ups and downs and, unexpected issues that arise. Like you really have to have a sense of humor. And I incorporate that. But a big part of like what motivated me at that time was like, I can do something that's not being done. And I'm like really atypical. I was like, it's either going to work or it's not going to work, but it's me. So I started incorporating like rap references and spiritual products. And I started designing things like, okay, I have this deck and it's like, I want to design it to look like CDs. I want the box to look like a CD case. I want to incorporate like cultural symbols that people would look at it and be like, oh, snap, I get that. I know that. So one of my affirmations in my deck published by Hay House, it's today is a good day. And it's the card from Ice Cube's video. If you know, you know, like, but things like that, like I don't have to like put a Black person on there for anybody to see like, oh, I get what she did there. But little things like that, I think are important to have people connect with something, whether it's a positive affirmation deck, whether it's art, whether it's a greeting card, to feel like, oh, they're speaking my language. I understand. And also with that spiritual side, like I became very passionate about healing and wellness, which I feel like is very important in our community. Mm-hmm. A lot of the things, a lot of the products and tools out there don't really speak to us. Right. And I think that's an issue. And one reason why I wanted to create something that I created it for myself, because during that transition time, I had to become my own hype woman. I was my own, like, ain't nobody doing this shit like you. You are so talented. Like, I had to be my own motivator, because I realized I had to change the way I thought, because I was thinking initially, I leave my job, shit's going to fall apart. Like, this is the career that like, and I was like, why do I think things are going to go bad? Like, things could be like so much better than what it is
Phenomenal.
now.
Absolutely. So let's stop right there because I think that's so important. So in any type of business that you're doing, I'm very much a believer that your mindset is of the utmost importance. And, and talk about that. So was it just overnight? You just flipped that switch? Was it something that kind of gradually you grew into? Like, how did you get there? Because like you're saying, without your mindset in the right space, you're not going to get to where you're looking to get to. You're not going to get to your destination. So talk a little about that.
It was gradual. So after I left my engineering career, I was just like, what did I just do? And so I was like, I have to change the way I'm thinking because I'm still in this like corporate state of mind in terms of how I work, like, and how I'm approaching things. And I'm like, that's not necessarily me.
Mm-hmm.
If I have my own company, what do I want to do? I want to wake up and put on a hoodie. I want to chill for a bit. I want to start working. Maybe I want to take a break at 2:00. But like, I was like, I started figuring out what does Krystal's ideal day look like? And then I was like, I need to start journaling because I'm going from zero. Like I've never done this before. Right. I didn't train for this. So I was like, I need to start writing my thoughts out so I could get my fears, my doubts, my expectations. So I know we're talking about entrepreneurship, but a big part of mine is like my thoughts and manifestation and like, what do I want to see? Everything I've written down, I've seen manifest for me personally.
Come on.
And I think that's how I set my mind on something. And I'm like, you know what, and willing to put in the work because somebody could say, oh, I want to make $1 million and just not do anything, but like, and put the work behind it. I have seen everything manifest. So I started journaling, like, what is my goal for Kaleido? Because everybody's business goals are different. And that's one of the things that I realized when I started going to trade shows. Like some people just want to stay with like very local, have a local footprint and, that kind of thing. Some people want to grow and be nationwide. Some people want a brick and mortar. Some people want to stay. So it's all important. It's really important to figure out like, what is your version of success look like? So for me, it was like, what do I want to accomplish with Kaleido? I want my products to be sold in stores all over the country. Like I want, people to be able to go somewhere, anywhere in California, and be able to walk into the store and see my product. And that's happening now. That's dope. That's dope. So my products are in Barnes and Noble, they're in Paper Source, all across gift shops all over the country. But I think that just came from me early on being like, what do I want this? So I want to build a brand where people recognize it for its aesthetics and its quality. And so that was very important to me. I'm like, I want to take the quality aspect of the engineering world and the aesthetic, my eye for color and creativity. And I want people to think of Kaleido and think of like, oh, that's going to be dope. Like Kaleido comes out with something, it's going to be really dope. And in doing that, I changed my mindset on how I go about creating and how I have confidence in myself, because if you don't think it's going to be fire, how is anybody else going to? So facts. I constantly tell myself all the time, like, your creativity is what's going to set you apart. Like, it doesn't matter. Somebody could try to copy it, but it's how I take care. And I have all these different skill sets and talents that make it what it is. Yeah. And things that I care about. So I think it was just a matter of like taking some time. So I started doing pre-COVID, a solo trip a year. And on this solo trip, I would write down like everything that I feel like went well that year, things that didn't go well, or things that didn't happen that I really wanted to happen. And is there anything I could have done differently? And if not, okay, well, I did my best. And it was like it's like this little solo retreat for myself to reflect, plan forward, relax, and not be too hard on myself.
And it's a tax write-off.
Yeah, exactly. That too. So that was really kind of my way of giving myself grace, because as a business owner, it's hard. And these days, like, I consider myself like a geriatric millennial. That's like my favorite hilarious term right now. I'm a geriatric millennial. And so the funniest thing about that is business ownership is like so romanticized on social media right now. And I just can't get with it because it's like, I enjoy what I do. I love creating, but owning a business is not just this like, you wake up, you go to the dealership, you get your Lamborghini and your business name,
Right.
you go down, and then you got your drop shipping, and then you got all this money. That's not reality for me. So I think like looking at business and are very realistic and respecting it. And that's why I have to give myself grace because it's not easy.
Right.
And sometimes I'm like, damn, it was a lot easier when I was working for somebody.
Right.
There's so many things, like I have to be on top of everything. And I'm growing by outsourcing, but at the same time, I'm trying to figure out like, because Kaleidope is growing, and I'm like, how do I want Kaleidope to grow? Do I want to hire a ton of people? I don't know if I want that. Like, do I just want to outsource? So these are the conversations.
Can we pause there?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to interject, but yeah, let's pause there because that was one thing I wanted to ask you about. We've kind of went off in some good topics, but I'm really interested from 2017 to now, what does that team structure look like? Is it, I mean, do you have, help here? Or are you outsourcing things, more tasks? Like what does the team structure for Kaleidope look at this point? And then where do you, again, I kind of cut you off there, but where do you actually see it going in the near future?
So everything is outsourced. Kaleidope is literally Krystal. And a lot of people don't realize that because I do so much and they're like, there's no way.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I just, use my business experience and outsourcing and all of that to help me handle everything.
But can I interject right there? I'm sorry to even cut you off more, but I'm saying, so I've ordered products from Kaleidope, and with you, people might hear this and like, oh, she's a one-person show, but still, like, I mean, the product came like on time, very quickly, quality, everything was there. So, I mean, major shout out to you and your support that and what you're doing, because it is definitely ran like, like a top tier business as opposed to some type of, side hustle. Exactly.
That's very important to me, especially as a Black businesses, because I think Black businesses just get a bad rep. And I think, unfortunately, like one or two bad experiences, people just want to write off. Like all Black businesses are just poorly run, and that's not true. And one of the things that is very important to me is quality and professionalism. So if I see any comments or any like, people complaining about something, I'm like, ain't no way. It has to be, but people blame the sometimes the business for like shipping issues.
Right.
So that I don't worry, but in terms of like a quality product, a quality experience, that is so important to me, because in my former life as an engineer, one of the things I worked with was perception of quality. And you can have a product that maybe, let's use, since I was in manufacturing, let's use Under Armour. So you can have Under Armour, right? And you can have another brand made completely the same as Under Armour, same material. People are going to buy the Under Armour because they perceive the quality to be better.
Right.
And so I want to design my product. So if somebody looks at my instance on a shelf and there's another instance, they're going to be like, nah, that one's got to be better. And the Trojan horse is actually, it probably is better because I invest in the quality. So it's almost like I really want to draw people in with like that perception, because Apple does this very well with the way that their products are designed. So I'm very inspired about how they design things to make people want to touch it, want to look, want to own it. But also I want somebody to open it up and be like, oh, this is well worth the money that I spent. And that's also something that is near and dear to my heart, because people write me all the time and say, I can't wait to buy your deck on my next paycheck. As in, they gotta wait. They're like putting money aside. So I want to, if people spend their hard-earned money on something that I have created with my own mind, hands, whatever, I want to make sure they feel that I have put in the time and energy and effort and care to provide them with a quality product. So that is very, very important to me. Whereas people that are just in business to make money, that's not, you're looking for profit. I'm not looking for that, but it's come anyway.
Right.
Because I think I take care in all of these things that we're talking about.
Dope. I mean, talk that shit. I love to hear it, man. I love to hear it. No, for real. I mean, I just had to sit back. I mean, you're so passionate in your talk, just gotta let you go. I mean, that's super dope. And I mean, I'm super proud just watching the growth in your product and your business. It's awesome. Hearing you talk a little bit about like the perception of a Black owned produced product. Let's back up a little bit, because that is one question I wanted to ask you. It's not really the same topic, but I have heard in the past in your other experiences as an engineer, some of the obstacles you may have come across with being a Black woman in the corporate space. Now, do you find some of the same or different obstacles in your current industry with being a Black woman, and how has that impact you, and how have you navigated through some of those?
That's a good question, because it does impact me, but in a different way. So in a different way, as in I'm in a few different communities. So the stationery community is very white, very, very white, very, what's the word I want to use? It's very cookie cutter. Like it's a certain look. Like when I think of the stationery world, I think of like scrapbookers, if that makes people that do scrapbooking. So it's very like very cursive and flowy, and it just has a certain aesthetic that it just not very Black at all. And I say this in terms of the demographic that you see at these conferences. So I realize there's a lack of representation, and it's crazy because in every industry I'm in, the lack of representation is still the same, which baffles me, because there's no reason for that in 2022. That means it's by design. And so when I've come into these industries, I've been very loud and proud about, I am doing this because there is a lack of representation.
Right.
When I go into a store and I buy something, I can tell usually if a Black person didn't make it. Like I said, there's some recognition in whether it's a joke, whether it's the way something is worded, whether it's, it's just colloquialisms that you can tell. And so that is very important when you're going to like support something. And now people have been very hyper aware of who made this. Is this appropriation? Like who is responsible for
talking about that? When you go into like the card section to any type of store and you see like the ebony section and you read like, ain't no Black person wrote that shit. Come on.
And also, and
talks like that.
With the ebony sections, it's like a Black person with an afro. Like that is as creative as you can get. You know what I mean? So
right.
Blackness does not just look one way. And that's why I really want to create, to show, whether it's a joke about, I did a card that's really popular for Mother's Day, but it talks about like, it's called My Bad Mom, but it says basically like, Mom, if I could do it all over again, I would take the chicken out of the freezer and watch it.
Right.
And so as an adult, I'm like, damn, I would have been pissed off if I asked my kids to do that. And I just got home from all day. So I literally called my mom, was like, Mom, my bad. Cause I would have been pissed off if I, so things like that a lot of people can relate to, I'm sure. But like growing up in my house with my Black mother, that was one thing that was a big thing. And so creating from that standpoint of lived experiences, things that people can relate to or remember is very important. So when I started doing this and 2020 came, every industry that I'm a part of was like, oh yeah, we claim we support, quality. And, you can put your Black square up, but when people go to your board or they look and see like who you're buying from, how many Black artists or how many Black owned companies do you stock product from? And it's next to none. You know what I mean? So during that time, I was having a lot of conversations and I was repeatedly saying like, I want people, yes, I'm a Black owned business, and that's a very big part of what my business is, but don't just buy from me because I'm Black. Buy because it's dope. Like if you're just buying because I'm Black, that means you're not going to stick around because you're just trying to check a box. And I don't want to be anybody's token. Buy it because people are buying it. Like it's popular. It's dope. So, and it's not going to resonate with everybody. And that's the beautiful thing about it. I've been at trade shows where people, like an older white woman came up to me. She was like, I love your stuff, but my people won't get it. Like the people that come to my store won't get it. So that's dope. Like a realization that, you know, it's not my market because it's not going to be, and that's the thing about business. You should not try to be everybody's market.
Yeah, it ain't for everybody.
And it's not for everybody. Pick your lane and like go at it, because nobody can really mess with you in your lane and your specialty.
That's a good point.
And that's where I stay. I know my strong point and I stay there, and I've done very well there because I don't try, oh, the older community isn't getting it. Okay, I can't do that. So yeah, I've experienced the same thing when I was signed by Hay House. I believe their first Black author / illustrator of decks. And when I was talking to them, I made it clear. I was like, you know, I started creating these decks because I was going through my own spiritual growth, and you know, I had to write affirmations for myself, and I realized there wasn't a lot in imagery or content that really spoke to people of color, specifically Black people. And so I started creating it myself. And that's like, I feel like that's the market share that I was able to tap into, because you can't go in the store and find anything that looks like what I'm selling. And, you know, when I got signed, it was like, you know, I had the ability to have my product on a larger scale, but also be the person that I wish I would have saw when I was on my journey. There was nobody that looked like me or was, you know, talking about spirituality, but also like, yeah, listen to rap, and we could be, you know, duality and all of these things. And I enjoy all of these things. And so I think in every single industry that I'm a part of, or me being a Black woman, it was one of those things where I used it to my advantage because I am different, but that's a beautiful thing. Like that's the whole point. We're trying to make everything the same, but we're not the same. Go outside, look at the trees, look at the leaves. Like, you know what I mean? Like why trying to make everything a certain, like, or exclude the diversity that exists in the world? That doesn't make sense to me.
All right. So I had to ask because I mean, you know, you've touched on a couple of times. One of your products for Kaleidodope is the tarot decks, and super dope, by the way. I still got to copy me one of those as I understand more about it now. And that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm a Southern Black person, you a Southern Black person. I mean, just a lot of that stuff is, especially when we talk to our elders, it's like, I know Jesus. No, Jesus.
Right.
It's like, no, that's
right.
I'm not lighting candles and you know, talking to, you know, demons or anything like that with this tarot course. So can you like explain that to us, because you have so many dope decks, colorful decks, and like, and you clearly are a very spiritual person. You've touched on that and spoke about that already multiple times during our conversation. So, you know, how do you use them, and how would you encourage, you know, people out there to use your decks?
So when I was making the decision to go Kaleidodope, dive head first, during that time, as I said before about how I realized that lack of representation is in all areas. Right. Well, one of the things that I noticed when I was in those museums in Europe was like
Light flex. Light flex. I caught it.
When I was in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I peeped was like angels, gods, heavenly figures. They're all white. So subconsciously, if I asked you, what does an angel look like? James, what would you tell me? Just off the top of your head.
Beautiful, Black, beautiful.
Okay.
No, I'm joking. Okay. Yeah, a little white baby.
A little white baby with wings.
Right.
Like that's from the imagery that we've been fed over and over and over. And I'm like, imagery is so powerful. It gets into your subconscious. So I was like, this needs to be reframed, like, because it goes so deep. Because if you think about angels, gods, heavenly figures, white, angels, gods, white, good, holy, white, the like, without you even thinking.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, so what is Black then? What do Black people represent? And I'm like, that imagery is telling a story that's not necessarily true. And that's one of the things that I notice in spiritual products, very white, and I'm like, why? And so I do believe that part of this could be part of the reason why this does not resonate with a lot of our people. It does not reflect us at all.
Right.
But also, one of the things that tarot has helped me with is understanding that life is a human experience that we all experience. The ups, the downs, the goods, the bad, every card represents a certain energy. So when I was going through that transitional period, it helped me step out of the role of victim. I did everything right. Why is this happening to me? I don't deserve this. Into, you know what? We all go through these ebbs and flows. Everybody, nobody is immune. This is a human experience. And it allowed me to look at it in a way where it was more reflective. What is this trying to teach me? What can I learn from this? How can I use this to my advantage? And now looking back, that had to happen to get me to what I was supposed to. So at the time I saw it as a punishment. Why is this having my life is falling apart? But all of that had to crumble so I could be who I am today. Like, I discovered I have all of these other talents and gifts I would have never discovered. And so for me, tarot just allowed me to, and people look at it like, oh, it's evil. It's cards. There's a deck of playing cards in every Black person's house. I guarantee you.
Facts.
So you can read playing cards just like you can read tarot cards. It's all about the energy. And if you've ever been someplace and been like, that person giving me a weird vibe, or this place gives me good vibes, it's the same thing, the same exact thing. It's reading energy. Some people do that by just being in a space and feeling it.
Yeah.
Some pull cards, but that's what it is. And from my engineering background, and if we believe in physics and energy can't be destroyed, how can you take away? And the beauty of what I do, I'm not trying to sell anything to anybody. I'm just making sure people understand what it is so they can choose whether or not it works for them. Some people are like, oh, I'm not into it. Great.
Right.
But if people aren't educated enough to know what it is before they say, oh, no, get that away from me.
Right.
Then you're not really coming from a place of true understanding. So for me, it's given me an opportunity to look at life from a space of, I guess, understanding and being willing to be open to the experience and learn from the experiences. And so that's really how I use it. So if I'm feeling a certain way, I might pull a couple cards, and the cards each have their own meanings and energy behind it. And so say a card comes out where it's like somebody's stressed out and anxious. I'm like, oh, I'm nervous about this deal. That's why I'm feeling this way. But so I need to stop being in my head and just let things flow. So that's really how I use it and how a lot of people use it. But I think it's just very intimidating because of ignorance. Like I didn't know. I just was taught it was bad. Like that's it.
Right.
It was bad. And so I wanted to educate myself and figure out what that meant for me. And that's for any spiritual product. Like, and you don't have to renounce Jesus to learn about other things, because you might figure out like, oh, this actually isn't for me, but it's interesting. I have a frame of reference. I actually study a lot of different forms of spirituality. I grew up Christian. Now that's my base, but I identify as like more spiritual.
Absolutely.
But my belief in God, if you look at all these different backgrounds, and in my opinion, it's like different paths to the same place.
Yes. I'm very much so a believer of that as well. I mean, just like, in different languages all over the world. I mean, but at the same time, when we look up in the sky, in English, it's called the sun. In another language, it's called this, it's called that. We're all speaking about the same thing. It's just how we're saying it. Exactly. I completely agree with that. Yeah.
And so who am I to tell somebody else what their belief system is wrong? Like, who am I to tell you that? And that's why for me and what I do, and this is my goal, and I've said this in so many podcasts and interviews. Like my goal is to encourage people to discover this self-discovery, because once you get so content with yourself and you know exactly where you stand and what you're supposed to, nobody can interrupt you. Nobody can make you doubt yourself. Because even now, some people are like, I don't know about that. And I was like, well, I respect that, but I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
And I can talk about it with passion and confidence because I'm so sure of, what I'm doing and my belief. And even on top of this, there've just been so many signs that have guided me and shown me that this is the way for me, and even ideas of things to do that have been successful. Like I can't explain that. I think that's the part of business too, that sometimes you just got to trust yourself. It might not make sense to anybody else but yourself, but you have to trust yourself enough to move forward with it, instead of you be like, I don't know, let me ask somebody. It's not for anybody else. You know what I mean? So sometimes I have to like stop myself from like asking somebody's opinion on something, because they don't have the same reference as me. So they won't be able to really give me the best advice. Only I can make the decision on some things.
Right. And yeah, I tuned into one of your IG lives and just hearing you talk about, being in tune with, your surroundings, your environment, and picking up on signs and signals that are really only meant for you. And that's kind of helped me. And I mean, you're like, even like the numbers and different signs, you're very big on it. So that's kind of made me be a little bit more aware about those types of things as well, and kind of pick up on energy, you know what I'm saying? So that's dope. By the way, how is the energy? Energy good?
Is good.
Is our aura good? We zen in here. I mean, what else?
Yeah, we vibing. Of course, the energy's always good.
Yeah. For sure. Dope. I've heard you talk a lot about affirmations. I'm big on affirmations as well. What are some of your biggest affirmations?
One of my big ones now is I think it's
not too personal or anything.
No. One of my biggest affirmations is like I prioritize my time. And so why that's big for me now is because if everything's important, nothing's important. And as a business owner, people think like everything's important. If that's the case, then nothing means anything. So I have to choose and pick and choose. Like I'm only one person. Yeah. I have to understand for myself and allow myself to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on today. And sometimes I get overwhelmed because I think about all the things that I have to do. It was like this earlier. I have a trade show in San Francisco next week. I don't know if I'm ready for it. I've been painting. I have this order I have to get out to Paper Source. I have like all of these things that are going on. And I'm just like, you know what? I can only do one thing at a time. Me thinking about all these things is going to cause analysis paralysis, where I don't do anything because I don't know what to do. And so I'm like, I can't do that. I have to prioritize. And so that has been the biggest thing for me, because when I overwhelm myself, I'm not my best self. I'm not productive. I'm not creative. I get a block. And so that's how I allow myself the grace to not be superhuman. Like I'm not. And sometimes I try to be, and I have to remind myself like, it's okay. It's okay. Right. And I'm very hard on myself too, when I like might make a mistake. And then I have to be like, you're human. Like, cause the expectations, and I think I just take being a business owner and being Black and all these things very personally, in terms of, I want my business respected. I want people to see I'm not playing, like this is hard shit. Yeah. And so I take that very seriously, but at the same time, I have to give myself grace and be like, you're human. Like Amazon fucks up too. And they got a whole, you know what I mean? Like, thanks. So yeah, I think that's my biggest one now, just because I'm in a place where there's a lot of growth happening and I don't really know exactly how that's going to look for me. I have some ideas, but now I'm getting really into my painting, and that's been really exciting. And I feel in any business, sometimes you got to step away to get the inspiration back and get the love back. And for me, painting has done that for me, because I've been on the grind for years, done with one thing, start the next, nonstop, because I was like, I need to be stable. I started, James, I was reaching out to a bunch of companies and nobody was responding. And there was a voice in my head that said, make them come to you. Fuck it. Make them come to you. Keep working and they'll come to you. That's exactly what happened. Oh, my publisher approached me. The companies approached me. It all happened that way. And so I'm like, I've been grinding for so long. It's almost like I'm like, I don't know what's next. And so I started painting because that's what I started. And it's been giving me like this breath of fresh air and this inspiration. And I'm thinking about, oh, what could be next and da, da, da. But I needed that. So with that, I'm like, okay, so I have this other realm that I'm getting into now.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to like show my art in places and all of that, which is exciting.
I saw that you were on IG. You were like in NYC lately. I mean, recently, right? Yeah, that was dope.
I show my work at a gallery. So that was like my first time. I've always been shy to show my paintings. And it's ironic because it's like I have my decks all out here. Like the funny thing is I was with a friend and she Googled like my name, and on YouTube, people are doing like reviews of my decks and talking about like it's the craziest thing, but like
that's dope.
My work all the way out there, my paintings feel like very personal. And so it's like I'm putting that side of myself out there, but it's also just giving me more inspiration. But it's fun to create something that's for Krystal and not for like mass consumption with Kaleidodope. But that feeds back into Kaleidodope because I mean, I am that. So it's been a great way for me to get that inspiration back in my business. And I think people need to understand there's going to be ebbs and flows in life with your business too. And sometimes you don't know where to go next or what's next. And I'm a big fan of not forcing it. So right now I'm like, having these conversations with, I'm sourcing out different suppliers because I'm growing. So now I'm like, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Okay. So absolutely. I'm doing all of these things to prepare for whatever's next because I do have opportunities for growth. But at the same time, I'm like, what does it look like for Krystal? So, but it's a good place to be in because like I can make the choice, like what it looks like for business growth.
No, I'm super excited about where everything's going, and I look forward to following that. I did want to back up because we talked about your personal thought process with transitioning and as a business owner into entrepreneurship. But I mean, one thing that I do know about you, family and friends are a very, big part of your life. And like you said, some of the inspiration came from your friends even talking about, hey, you gotta, produce this and sell this. But when you first started out, I mean, again, let's talk about it. You were Miss Corporate America, consultant, engineer, making money. Yeah. So what did that look like when you were like, yo, I'm walking away from this shit? Like,
people were like, huh? You what? Wasn't you just in Dubai and like, weren't you just in like Thailand the other day and Brazil and you leaving that? And it's a great example of good versus great. So we could be in a good place in our life and good, and life is good, but it could be better, but that good will keep you stuck. And so I had to not let that deter me because I started thinking that too, like, damn, am I tripping? I had the most flexibility ever. Like it was just, and that's how I knew I had to leave though, because how can you go from like, it can't get any better in this corporate world. Like I have all the things that people are like, oh, I wish I could do this on my job, or wish like I could be in the office. This is before COVID. I could be in the office, out of the office, traveling on the company's dime, like going all of these places, learning French, like doing this, doing that. But it's like, I knew that there was nothing else for me there. I was not passionate about anything that was going on. And it wouldn't have been fair to myself or them to stay. And a lot of times people stay for comfort, stability. And I will say this is related to business, but this is related to life and relationships too.
Oh, shit.
But people stay for comfort and for what's known and because it's good. But you deep down, it might not be where you need to be. And that's, in my opinion, the most difficult place to be. It's easy to leave when shit's fucked up. Like if your job sucks, you're not making money, it's easy to be like, I'm out. Yeah. But when things are good, not great, but when things are good and you're okay, that's a tough place to be. And that I give my former self so many props for that, because
shout out to former KB.
Because at the time, I'm gonna be real, like I was making like car payment money a month for Kaleidodope when I decided to leave. It wasn't like like people are saying like, oh, I started my business and after 2 months, I was making more than my salary. No. That was a story. I was living off of savings for after my severance went out, I was living off savings for a while, but that's how much I believed in what I was doing. I knew this wasn't happening for no reason. And so with a supportive family, that was clutch too, because if I had a family, like people were like, you sure? But my family was like, we believe in what you're doing. Like,
that's dope. That's dope.
We'll be here to support you. You know, we'll see how it goes. If whatever you want, we'll see how it goes. Because at one point I was like, I don't know how long, like, I'm not one of those people that's just going to go broke and destitute. Right. Like, no, I need some type of stability in my life, but I will give it my all and see where this goes. But having supportive friends and family, even like as we talk about the spiritual stuff, as we know, like the Black community could be very like, no, I will not support that. My family was very like, you're not making this up. We see what's happening with you. And now when people doubt anything or say, I'm like, just watch me. I mean, I can show you better than I could tell you. If you see where I was in 2017 and where I am now, if you Google my work, that like I apply everything that I have created or whatever to what I do. I practice what I preach. So I believe in manifestation. I believe in affirmations, all of these things. That's how I was able to be at a point where I am making more than I made in corporate America. And who knows if I ever would have got to that point with those 3% raises, you know, per year that corporate America likes to do. But like, and I'm not saying that as like, because it's not all about the money, but it's about putting passion first and believing that that will pay off in another way. Because right now, even with deals, if brands approach me, like, it's not about the money. If I'm not into it, I'm not going to take your money. And that's where I'm able to create with authenticity and not just, oh, this is trendy, let me just create something.
That's a beautiful spot to be in.
It is. And I'm definitely like thankful to be in that spot. And I want to be able to continue to create from that place because I can speak like I'm speaking now about it. Right. And you could tell, like, I don't ever want to have a project and I'm like, I don't know what to say because I'm not into it. And people don't believe me when I say like I'm like a homebody and introverted, but I get so hype about what I do because I love it. I believe in it. I wholeheartedly put my all into the things that I make. And I take it very seriously. So I want people to get that.
Dope. No, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I was going to ask you about that. Do you consider yourself an introvert or extrovert? I mean, just like kind of your background from me personally, what I see, I don't know if it's one way or the other, but you claim to be an introvert.
Well, I will say when I get around people, you know, I like to talk to people, but like how I recharge, like being like, I can't be out in like, I'm not a festival person. It's too much. I'm very sensitive to energy these days too. So if I sense something and it like makes me feel off, like I'd rather not be around. And I think just the past several years, literally, James, have been dedicated to Kaleidodope. No bullshit. Like I took it that seriously. I had no like social life. And I'm not saying that like, oh, sad, but it's like, that's just the time that was necessary to put into my business to make these products and to get like myself and my business taken seriously. Cause at the beginning, I wasn't even putting myself out there. I was like, I want the product to speak for itself. But then I was like, you know, people are asking like, who created this? Because it has Black people. So people are like wanting to know like, who's behind this? So I realized the power, like, although I prefer to stay behind the scenes, the power in being visible and the power of telling your story, because you never know who it's going to connect with, or just people seeing like, oh, she looks like me. Oh, she could do it. I could do it too. So that kind of thing. So that's pretty cool about kind of being able to step outside of my comfort zone. So even all of this stuff is not comfortable for me. That's why I'm not good at social media, because I prefer to just be creating behind the scenes. I don't have to show people or do like a little dance and like, I'm not good. Like it's not me. But there is value in putting yourself out there and speaking about what you do so people can see the passion. And I believe people aren't dumb. They can see authenticity. They can look at somebody and be like, they flexing or they're flexing. But with me, it's like when I do like go live or when I do post something, it's because I have something to say. I don't believe in just posting for the sake of the algorithm. That's why I'm not good at social media. But the beauty of that and the blessing, and I'm so grateful, all the press that I have received has been organic. I don't have a press team. I don't have a PR team. I've featured in the Washington Post, Cosmopolitan.
Talk about it.
Elite Daily, all of these different, this is organic. This is people finding my stuff and being like, oh, this is cool. Like all of this. So that is the coolest thing to me. But eventually, you know, with growth, you need those things. I'm not flexing on the fact that I don't have that, but that's how much time I was spending into the product. When you're the sole person creating, designing, producing, setting up your website, doing this, doing that, I don't have time to do the other stuff. I'm just hoping that it connects.
So let's stop right there, because that's one, and I know you got to go because got all that shit to do before next week. But I had a couple other questions to ask you. And one of those, you just talked about all these different tasks, all these different hats and things you have to do as an entrepreneur. What would you say is your biggest productivity hack? Or do you have one?
So I try to knock out, my business is so, there's so much duality in my business. It's like, I have customers who don't know who Krystal Banner is. They just know that Kaleidodope is dope and they like the cool stuff. I have another group of customers who are like, Krystal Banner, she is the coolest deck creator ever. Like, I'm going to buy those decks. And so you have other people that just stumble upon it and buy it. And the process of getting the products for each of these different is so different. So it's very hard, but I've taken a lot of my engineering. So, you know, I was in these manufacturing facilities, and one of the things that we had to do was kind of make sure inventory is at a place where it makes sense, where you're not wasting money. So I operate very lean. So I have this is very industrial engineering term, but so there's pull and push manufacturing. So I let the orders pull. So I don't just stock a bunch of stuff. I let the orders gauge how I prepare. So that allows me to have a very low inventory, but get exactly what customers need or what my wholesale customers need. And it also allows me to consolidate orders. So I try to just consolidate everything at one time and pay attention to all aspects of my business. And this is very specific for my business, but even with the decks that I order get printed in China, I know some are more popular than others. So I'm able to stagger my inventory and produce it like in a way that it translates to sales. And I'm not stuck with a bunch of product that I have to offload, because if you're selling a product, that is the biggest way to lose money, to have inventory sitting, that is not moving.
Right.
And people don't think about that. They're just like, oh, I just want to buy a bunch of stuff and move it. But if you already don't have the demand, how are you going to move it?
Right.
So I think saying all of that, I guess my productivity hack is being in tune with my customers and being in tune with the demand, so I can operate in a way to serve that demand. Like some products I don't bring back until I feel like there's enough demand for it, because why would I spend the money to produce it if it's a certain cost and I don't have the demand for it? So just being in tune with my clientele is really like,
that's right. Kaleidodope fans, get your orders up. Stop playing out there. No, I'm joking. That's dope.
It's a blessing though, because I've created so much stuff. I have to scale, like I have to downsize. I'm like, okay, this is getting out of control. Like in terms of inventory and all these different things, I'm like, let me retire some so I can introduce some new things. So yeah, just being with my customer.
So with all that being said, Krystal, what's the lead time for an order from your company?
So now if somebody orders like from my website,
yep,
like maybe 3 to 5 days.
Yeah, super reasonable. I mean, that's what you can expect.
It was less before COVID. I've
Mm,
had it in some time because sometimes it's hard. People don't realize the logistics. Sometimes it's hard to get, people forget, we have to buy the sleeves that you get, like stuff is mailed in. Like somebody has to buy that to ship it. So if there's a backlog on those, I remember in 2020,
yeah.
one of my cards, greeting cards, blew up. I was selling hundreds a day. It was crazy. It was so hard to find mailers to ship them. So people were mad. We're in like the thick of COVID.
I had COVID, yeah.
People are mad because their order wasn't shipped like that day. Like it was shipped the next day. But I'm like, there's like, I have nothing to ship this in.
Right.
This is when Amazon, like Prime was like 2 weeks or like the next week, that era. So I was having to get creative and find other ways, going to stores and buying all of the little padded mailers off the shelf, what I could get to keep up with orders. So it's like, I was making sure and even then it wasn't enough because we were in the thick of COVID, but like, even in that time, I was still trying to go above and beyond. But now I'm like, I'm not going to kill myself. If something doesn't come in time, I'm giving myself some padding, 3 to 5 days. But yeah, so that's the average time, which I think for an online store, an independent online store, is very, very good.
No, absolutely. For sure. Nah, but yeah, if I make an order, I'm gonna need you to go ahead and run to the store and make sure my shit go out. I'm not playing. You know what I'm saying?
I got you. I'm gonna put a star on your order.
Yeah. No, and I mean, one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I've heard you reference China, and are you still partnering with China in some ways? So how has that worked? Because I know many things coming from China and the issues that we're having, between the two countries. A lot of things I'm hearing are just sitting. They may have been shipped, but just sitting on the dock and having issues. Have you seen any of those types of issues within your business?
Yes, I had decks that arrived like a month late, and that's usually I'd be stressed out, but it's the COVID era. Like I think if the COVID era has not taught anybody anything, chill the fuck out, relax. If you don't get something and it's not like a life-saving medication, it's okay. Right. Americans are so like, it's mine and I want it now. Demand. And this has made me reflect on myself too. A lot of these things are not like, you do not need them right now. We have this sense of urgency. We don't rest. There's no team, no sleep. You need to rest. Right. You need to relax. You need to take it easy because it's going to be there. So I think what the COVID era has taught me in my business, do not kill yourself. These people will survive. Okay. Right. So at first it was stressing me out and I'm like, why? It's just going to be out of stock. It's just going to be out of stock until it gets here. There's nothing I can do. You'll be all right. You'll survive. You know what I mean? So right. That's really how I've been approaching that, because people get in a frenzy and it's like, but for what? Like, I really just sat back and was like, why? Right. And it's interesting because I have a lot of customers in other parts of Europe, and their reaction to delayed product is so different. It's like, oh no, we'll see. It's not your fault. Like, I know it has to go through customs. It's completely different. And I think after spending time in Europe, their view of work and life is completely different.
Facts. That's a big fact.
I think in the States and how we view work and how like, gotta have it now, sense of urgency, it's trickled over into being very unhealthy. And it's how people treat business owners, how people treat hiccups that happen in any business. It's become almost unreasonable, but I decided not to take that on. So I have experienced that. I've even experienced something, this happened like, I think 2000, it was before Biden got into office, when those issues were going on with China. Yeah. The people who print my decks, I used to pay them through PayPal. They were like, we don't use PayPal anymore. You got to wire it. So how that affected my business though, is I was using my credit cards to get points and also have cash on hand. Now I got to come up off the cash. So it's like, I was trying to save my cash because, cash is king. I want to sit, but now I can't do that. So I'm having to pay out. So I have to make sure that I have the cash to pay out these fees. Whereas before I was like, I'll just pay on credit now and then pay it off later. So it affects how I deal with my money and how I get paying for goods and all of those things.
I hope people are catching all these gems you're dropping. I mean, you're talking about production, you're talking about supply and demand, you're also talking about cash flow management. Like this shit is, I mean, super impressive just to hear you talk about all these different aspects of your business. And I mean, beyond the passion, your shit well too. You're speaking to about your customers. You clearly can talk about your numbers. So nah, man, that's super dope. Super, super dope. So with you having such, accomplished education background, I mean, become an engineer, this shit's not easy, right? I mean, where do you feel at this day and age about a 4-year degree? Are you about it? Or would you, are you saying, oh, it's not really needed?
I think if you know if you are clear on, not like, oh, I know exactly because you're 18, but
Right.
if you are passionate about something or you feel like this is what I want to do, I think it's still beneficial. I've talked to so many people, even when I was in college, I were like, I don't know, I just knew I had to come to college. I'm just here. Yeah. That, in my opinion, I don't think it's beneficial because, I mean, we're talking about money and decisions you make there, you know what I mean, can affect you. I know people today that are still like, I didn't buy a home because of the loans I took. Like, that's crazy. So, and I think we were taught like, that's what you're supposed to do. But
right.
I believe it's what you're supposed to do if you feel that makes sense for you. And right. I think before the conversation was just, that's what you do next. I think now it should be, have you thought about what you want to do next? And what does that look like for you? And is college necessary? Because a lot of these things that people are doing, college is not necessary. These kids nowadays, they are creating their own businesses through either content creating or like some natural skill or talent that they have.
Very true.
That now, if you take a couple classes or you go on YouTube University, like you can develop your own skill set without college. So I was very clear when I went to school. I was like, I'm good at math and science because at first I wanted to be an architect. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I think engineering is kind of what makes sense for me. And so at Clemson, we had to do this like general engineering thing. And so when I was there, hater, when I was there, I was like, oh, industrial engineering seems to give me the most flexibility in terms of being an engineer, because it's like you're designing a process and everything has a process. So I was very, very strategic at that age. And I kind of knew, but if you were just clueless, I don't think it's a good decision because it could really damage you financially in the long term.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And we were not having those conversations back then. I remember people were getting loans just to be able to sustain themselves.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now it's like, damn, was that the right decision? Probably not.
Right. But I mean, I think the key point that you said is, it's not necessary because you can teach yourself a lot of skills and start your own business. But I mean, a lot of us aren't entrepreneurs. So where does that come in to play?
Exactly. And that's why when I made the comment about the romanticism of entrepreneurship, everybody does not want to do this. And that's okay. Like, I feel like it's being sold like the only key to freedom. The only path to freedom is entrepreneurship. That's not true. My mentor, was making bank, as like CEO. Like that's not the only, and everybody's not going to be CEO, but there's still several different areas where you can have a flourishing career. I wasn't at the area where I wanted to be, but I was working my way up towards that. But I realized at that point, I don't want to keep working my way up. Like I'd be in those meetings where you have what do they call them? Where you have the yearly review, and they'd be like, okay, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And in my head, I'm like, nowhere. Like I don't move anywhere. You know what I mean? And that's when I was like, okay, I don't think I should stay here because I don't see myself. There's nowhere in this company that I would want to be in 5 years.
No, and where the light turned on for me is in finance is like the top is either CFO and CEO. And so all these different companies. I went to private companies. I was in publicly traded companies, and all the CFOs and CEOs were fucking miserable. And I was like, is that what I have to look forward to? Not saying that all of them are, but I know in the spaces and my experiences that I was in, none of them were happy. And I was like, well, what the fuck am I, breaking my back for to get to that point? So yeah. So that's why I was just like, I'm out this bitch. So
Absolutely. And so for people who, and there's some industries that, I mean, it's much harder to just like start your own stuff,
right.
like out the gate. Like if you a doctor, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like not just, oh, I'm just going to file an LLC and start operating on somebody. Like
there was that one kid who did that though. Okay, shout out to him.
That Dr. Love.
Shout out to him.
He was a mess. And that was illegal, James, by the way. Hey. And he had no degree.
Get it how you live.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not mad at him.
But yeah, I'm with you. Like
no degree.
So I think like knowing, like having an idea, but I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. Like nothing about it seemed appealing. I'm gonna be honest, nothing about it seemed appealing to me. I was like, wait, nah, I'm good. But here I am. Thanks, life. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like I'm here because I'm passionate about it, but it wasn't a goal for me. And when I see it being a goal for people, I always ask myself, I hope it's for the right reasons. Like, because if it's not, I feel like those are the people who just kind of jump to one thing to another. Like, oh, this isn't selling. I'm starting a business. I'm gonna just start a new business.
Right.
But
there's got to be something to push you through those difficult times. It's got to be, because if it's just money or whatever, that shit ain't gonna last. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely agree there. Let's see what else we got. And all right, so we may have some people out here that are like, damn, the shit Krystal is talking about is dope. I'm interested in this. I'm artistic, or I have that passion. What can you tell somebody that wants to get into stationery, tarot, painting industry, those different facets? What industries, pardon me, what can you really tell somebody who's, young out there and looking and interested in getting in? What can you tell them?
I would say create, keep creating, find your style or your area, like something that can be distinctively you. And when I started, I was just doing what I wanted. Like I'm gonna draw what I want to draw, or create what I would want, what I want to buy in the store. Yeah. And I realized at the time, like my work had this very kind of, it was always colorful. It was always creative. It played on different aspects. It was like cool. So I was like, okay, well, I guess this is my style, but it wasn't something I was like trying to do. So it's like a lot of times in every different industry, you want to do what's popular, or you want to do. And so if I would have tried to mimic that, I would have fallen in line with everybody else. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you think that might be your key to success, but that might just make you like everybody else. So it's one of those things where you want to do something that's popular, but at the same time, if it's not you. So I had people like copy some of my designs, and it's like, it probably won't work for you though, because it's not what you created. Right. And I always feel like anybody who's starting out, try to focus on your own practice and not look to see, because of course, part of the practice in entrepreneur or any business is like benchmarking. So you kind of want to see what's out there, what's popular, but that should not force you to change what comes authentic to you, because you can't try to recreate something that's inauthentic. So Right. It's like, try to find your niche, what you enjoy doing, your style. And once you get that down, that's what I think you're going to start to see who your products or art resonates with. Mm-hmm. And that is what builds your community. Because at the beginning, I did a whole Kickstarter that failed. And this is when I was still working. And so I was like, I feel like I was guided to do this. Why didn't it fun? Like, and I felt so strongly about it. And I was like, well, I'm just going to pay for it myself, because I was still working at the time. I was like, I'm going to just pay for it myself. I invested in myself.
Oh,
And so the other Kickstarters I did after that, they both funded. And the last one that I did funded, I think, in 2 or 3 days. It was
damn.
It was inspired by 2020. It's called 2020 Visions Tarot. And it was a
I
way to
remember that.
it was a way to reframe what was going on, but it wasn't all jokes, and like, it was touching on the protests. It was touching on Black people getting killed. It was touching on America and how, we say we have these values, but do we really? But all of these things, I feel like in spirituality too, I feel like it's how our ancestors were fighting back. The spirituality is like, isn't just like kumbaya. It's like acknowledging when things aren't right, when things don't feel good in your spirit, and confronting it for change. And so this is how I have been able to incorporate like serious things, not so serious things, jokes, like, things that are fun. All of those are parts of me. And I think it's important for people to figure out who you are and what's important to you, because that in turn is going to come out in your work, and people who are at that same level or resonate with that are going to be drawn to your work. So it's really like finding out what resonates with you, what you're passionate about, and your own like kind of comfort zone, your style, and then putting it out there. Putting it out there is a big one, because I was really kind of shy about putting my work out there for a minute.
Yeah. Yo, you a real soulful dude.
No,
but that's dope. No, I hope that resonates with some people out there that are, maybe interested in thinking about taking that step. No, I definitely do appreciate that, for real. So just a few more things. When it's all said and done, what does Krystal Banner want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for my creativity. I want to be remembered for my unique way of touching on the events of the time. I feel like art is a way to depict the times you're living in. So if you look at art from the past, they're touching on, like, you can see whether it's, and even like, speaking of tarot too, like in the original tarot deck is people on horses and goblets. I'm not going nowhere on a horse, but that is very indicative of that time. Right. The same thing if you go in a museum and see art created in the 1800s, it depicts that time. So I really want to be known for being creative and really illustrating what's going on right now. So when somebody looks at it, they can say, oh, like in that 2020 Visions Tarot deck where the Hermit card is a mask.
Right.
Oh, I guess that's when that pandemic hit. So it's like, I want people to be able to connect with my work and see the care, the quality that has gone into the work. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think I want to be known for my authenticity and how that comes out in my work, whether it's my decks, my greeting cards, or even my paintings. They all are, I'm saying the same thing. And there's this quote, this is so random, but it just came to mind. And I might be wrong, but I was watching this, I think it was like a Madonna documentary from way back then, random.
Oh, damn. Okay, yeah. All right.
No, I mean,
let's go.
Why it came to mind is she literally said, I'm not the best singer, but I have something to say. And she was in the 80s, she was that girl.
Right.
So
right.
I'm not painting to prove to people I can paint, or I'm not drawing to prove to people, look how great a drawer I am. I have something to say. I'm just saying it through my art. I have something to convey. I'm just doing it through these pretty pictures or through this like cool, gold edge deck. Like, yes, it's pretty, but there's stuff in there that
substance to it.
Substance. I want people to connect with it. And in the world of like social media and vanity and all of these things, like, yes, we can value beautiful things, and I want to create beautiful art, but the depth is just as important. So I think Absolutely. That's what I want to be known for.
So quickly, I mean, if someone hearing this wants to go out and get a tarot deck, a greeting card, some incense, or painting, just some of your products, where can we find your products online?
So you can find my products on kaleidodope.com. That is KALEIDADOPE.
Dope. I'll put it somewhere on here too. Cool.
Okay, great. And so in addition to that, my decks are also sold on my website. They are also sold on wherever books are sold, through Barnes and Noble, Amazon, things of that nature. The same with my greeting cards. They're on Etsy, Kaleidodope. My greeting cards are also in stores all over the United States. I'm working on a stockist list, but like I keep getting new ones, which is, not a flex, but it's just true. So I haven't updated it, but yeah, but you can always find me online through Kaleidodope or Etsy. But I do have a lot of stores that wholesale from me. So if you don't want to pay shipping prices, I hope to have that up on my site soon. So if you live somewhere, you get to see where the store is locally.
Stop being cheap and pay those shipping prices.
Oh, also paper sources are all around the country too. So if you want a Kaleidodope greeting card, you can get them from there as well.
Dope. And where can we find you on the socials?
So you can find me on Instagram at Kaleidodope, and also at Krystal, KRYSTAL.banner, BANNER. I'm not like a social media. I have other social media accounts, but I'm like an old lady. I'm like one social media thing at a time. Like,
you got those Kevin Durant burner accounts, Krystal? You out there hating and shit? Talking shit to people? Let me find out.
I need to get one. I need to get a burner account and be like, yo, y'all check out that Kaleidodope fire.
I'll be in the comments. Yo, that's a fraud. That's Krystal. Don't believe that shit.
Y'all heard of this girl named Krystal Glitter Fire? Yeah, but so Kaleidodope has a Facebook. It's not really active. Like I have all the socials, but like I said, that just hasn't been a priority. Now I'm at the stage where I'm more focusing on like growth and marketing. So that's something but I mean, for me, the priority was I need a product to sell, because I'm not reselling. Like, people don't realize that. So for the incense, I work with somebody to create the incense, but everything else is like I've drawn everything, I've produced everything, I've designed everything. And people think I'm just buying product, and like everything is, so it's not just, oh, let me just get the inventory. I have my hands on literally all parts. So it's like one of the things that I take a lot of pride in, but also it's one of the things that is very time consuming and requires a lot of attention. So that is where my energy was focused at the time.
No, dope. I mean, it's definitely, like I said, the quality of your product and the passion that you speak about. I mean, so no knock there. It's definitely understood. Man, Krystal, I really appreciate it. This has been a really good conversation, hearing about your growth, where Kaleidodope is going, just your skills, your mindset. I really appreciate it. I mean, I know you didn't have to do it. You're a very busy woman, so greatly appreciate it.
Of course. I enjoyed it. And I always like to talk about, because to be honest, business is not like the fun part for me. Right. But I think I'm excited to talk about it just because it's so necessary, especially to anybody else who's a creative in business. You need to understand how important it is. And even though it's not fun, I mean, you need to be on top of things, because how else are you going to get your mom in the private jet? Like, you got to do your business.
Facts.
And people try to take advantage of creatives a lot, because people who are creative, they just want to create. And
you got to know the business.
You got to know the business side, and you have to be willing to know your worth and walk away if they're not, speaking your language. So
y'all ain't gonna Don King my girl out there. She already got the business together. You know what I'm saying?
Don't do it.
Come with that right contract. Krystal, very much appreciated. So this has been another episode of Masterminds. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.